Hello and welcome to Poland Today's PT live online broadcast. My name is Richard Stevens. I'm the founder and editor of Poland Today. I have with me here today Carlos Pinerua, who is a country manager of World Bank in Poland, and we're going to talk about the future indicators for the Polish economy in 2019. Carlos, you've been here for just over 2 years. How do you find living in Poland?
I love it here. I think as a person who loves history and culture, and I'm a foodie also, so the three parts of that combination have been amazing to me. It's a good life, it's a fantastic life. It's a privilege to be part of this country and the experience of Poland.
And have you managed to travel around different cities in Poland?
I have. We do have a lot of work around the regions. We're working on 8 different regions right now, helping them with different economic problems. So it has been a privilege also to go around and see all of Poland, beautiful cities, beautiful history, everything that you can imagine I've been part of.
Mm-hmm. And when you first came to Poland, what surprised you most?
I was incredibly surprised by the entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, I had heard about how resilient Polish people are, but I was amazed at how entrepreneurial people are and how willing to do the right thing. It's good to see, particularly having had experience in all over the world, to see that kind of spirit in this country.
Great, well, that's good to hear. Poland was famously termed the Green Island back in 2007-2008 because it weathered the economic downturn so well, and since then Poland's growth has been quite impressive. 2018 estimated around 5%, just over. Do you see this continue? Do you agree with this assessment, and do you see this continuing?
I absolutely do. I think, of course, there are global conditions are changing, and they're changing relatively quickly. You hear what is happening in China and the US. So you worry about the global condition. But I think Poland, number one, in the short term, is going to do well. I mean, the whole momentum of growth is there, and unemployment is very low. Wages are growing very fast. In terms of policies, very much like in 2008, I think the policy framework in Poland is very strong, very low deficit, very strong external positions. So all in all, at least in the short term to medium term, I think Poland is going to do well.
Okay, so I mean, because I think people were surprised back in 2008 and afterwards that Poland weathered it so well. Are the fundamentals similar or are they different now?
They're very much similar in the sense that if something happens, because of the strength of the policies, as I mentioned, in 2008, for example, the government was able to expand its way out of the recession. So they could, because they haven't spent a lot of money before, and they had the buffers, if you will, they could go ahead and spend more and expand monetary policy, let the exchange rate be more flexible. All of these things are still there. And again, Poland comes into a situation like now with very strong fundamentals, which is what people would like to see at this point.
Mm-hmm. In 2016, one of the major credit rating agencies lowered Poland's credit rating because there was a concern about the cost of the social programs that the government was implementing, most notably the 500 plus, when every second and subsequent child gets 500 zloty a month from the government. And then they've raised the credit rating again because it seems that the Polish economy has managed to take this and even and not have a big impact. Why is this?
I think, there were some concerns that whether their 500 plus program was just the start of loosening of fiscal policy. But I think the government has done very well in managing those extra costs by tightening taxation, for example, collecting the taxes they should be collecting. So there hasn't been any impact in fiscal position of the country. So it validated the government's position that they could indeed finance these additional expenditures without generating any risk for the budget. Now, the question for us is obviously what is the impact in the longer term of this measure? Meaning, specifically, is it creating incentives for women in particular to step out of the labor market? And that's something to be seen. I know some people are concerned, some of our own people were concerned about it. But that impact is yet to be seen, particularly when you see, again, issues of earlier retirement, and the demographics of the country being such that it's a country that is aging very quickly. So all of those three things could fundamentally affect the growth dynamics in this country.
Okay, in terms of like the effect it's having on women leaving the workforce or not, how long will it take till Poland can assess this?
I think it will certainly, we need to wait around 2 years to see exactly, because the problem is not so much that people step out of the labor market, it's whether they come back to the labor market. So even if they do step out right now, how long does it take? And people lose their skills when they leave the labor market. So that's the hardest thing to measure right now.
Okay, thank you. Poland was the biggest issuer of first residence work permits in the EU, and that was work permits really were for work, whereas let's say a country like UK, it's often for family joining family or for studying, but there is a lack of skilled labour in Poland, and now we've got, for example, Germany opening its borders for Ukrainians and other Eastern European people. How do you see this playing out going forward? Where will Poland, fill this skilled labour shortage?
I think that the important thing to recognize is that that is a reality, particularly because of, I just mentioned the issue of demographics. Poland is not only needing additional people now, but in the medium term will need more people because it's aging very quickly. And the thing that I'm concerned the most is that this has to be in an orderly way. So what are the skills that Poland needs? From where are you going to get them? All of these things require some thinking in the medium term, and I think the government is doing that already, as to how do we do this? Where do we get the people from? What are the skills that we will need? You have technological change also, so you may have actually you may think that you can get robots to do this. All of these things are actually important questions to ask. And also, what do you do with the retirees? How do you finance their pensions? Do you need a minimum social payment, for example? All of these things have to be part of the equation, and they need to be thought through, and we're helping the government with that.
Mm-hmm. And what skills does Poland need at the moment?
I think, again, right now, it's a lot of the shortages that we see are in the investment side and construction workers. So it really is not what you would call high-skilled workers. But even that, it's important because you still have a number of infrastructure needs in this country that you need to think through how you're going to meet them. In the longer term, depending on the technological change, which is another mega trend that every country is facing, you need to think, do we need more high-skilled people or not? Can you generate them here by changing the higher education system, for example? That's another question. Do we just change universities and the university services to allow young people in Poland to generate that knowledge that the country needs?
Mm-hmm. Something you see in Poland, actually, especially recently more, is that you will hear many more languages spoken on the street, and even you're meeting students who have come from all over the world, from other parts of Europe and further. Have you seen this? Is this something that you've seen?
Yes, and actually I get students from the US coming every year and talking to me, more and more interested in Poland. I think Poland has been too humble about its own experience. I think Poland has to go out and tell the world why is it so successful. And I think there's a success story here to be told. And we're helping to do that. But Poland has to be, and I understand the culture that doesn't like to boast, but it's important to let people know that why is it that Poland is where it is and why it has been so successful at what it does.
That's a very familiar theme to hear foreigners coming here and being really impressed and saying, why doesn't the world know about it? I mean, how can a country like Poland, how can Poland get that message across that it's a success story? I
think, obviously, international institutions, but we do try to do that, and we will continue to do that. I think the Poland representatives abroad have to go out there and tell the world this is what we do. And again, I think it will be well received. I had a conference last November where the U.S. ambassador was there, and she was telling the story of a survey they did in the U.S.
The what, sorry?
A survey that they did in the U.S. about what Americans thought of Poland, and it was incredibly shocking that they thought they were still an agricultural economy. That when I told someone that I was going to Poland, she said, "Poor you, poor me. This is one of the greatest economic stories in the world. Quality of life is amazing here. Safe country. I can walk to work every day. Its quality of service is amazing." So I think some of these things, again, it requires a strategy. And I think the government wants to make sure that people know that why Poland is where it is right now. But it requires an effort from everyone.
Okay. Everyone who knows Poland knows that the FTSE Russell Index promoted Poland to developed nation status, developed economic status from developing. So Poland now is in the top level. It's competing with much more dynamic, larger, aggressive economies. What does that mean for Poland in terms of investment and Polish companies?
Well, these things you have to take, frankly, with a grain of salt, right? Because what this does is that some institutional investors look at it and say, oh, Poland is now a developed market, so there's a certain threshold that we need to cross in terms of the amount of investment that we need to do that. To invest in. But it really, I don't think people should relax about that by any means. I think people, the government in particular, needs to keep working at its reforms to make sure that investors feel confident that they can come and invest in Poland. And that requires not only being part of some index, but it also requires changing your university services, for example, getting the kids that the companies will require for their investment, all of that. So again, it's good. It's a good sign that it's recognized as a developed market, but it really doesn't change the reality in the ground, and it's important to recognize that.
Okay. The World Bank famously publishes the Ease of Doing Business report. Poland has moved up the rankings, but last year was 27th, and in 2017 was 27th, and in 2018 was 33rd, so moved down a few spaces. Is that important? Is that significant?
It is important in the sense that people need to understand that this ranking is a relative ranking. So it isn't that Poland did something wrong to be downgraded. It's a reality that when you get to the top 20, 25, you have the Singapores of the world, the Koreas of the world, and then you start competing for that. So it's very hard to move up. Now, to the government's credit, immediately the Minister Emilewicz called us and he said, can we work on this? Can we make sure that Poland moves up? And how do we do this? And we are happy to do that. And there are things that will still need to be changed and it can be improved on. But again, some of the measures that the government has done are not reflected in doing business. So it's not an indictment of anything in particular, but it's only a benchmark that people should follow. For example, the doing business doesn't measure corruption and other quality of services, for example, public services. Some of these things are important for the doing business, for investors, and it's not reflected there in that particular index. But that doesn't mean that they should relax. And in fact, as I said, the minister has called us and he says, can we work together in making sure that we keep this performance going?
And what advice did you give, in a nutshell, what advice did you give Minister Emilewicz?
So we're going to have a team come in because there are a number of indicators that they could work in. I think one of the things that we will like to work on with them in its early days, but is the registration of business. It's still very complicated to register a business in Poland, and there are completely different experiences across some national governments. And so that's something that we think it's important to look at, for example, because there are poorer regions in Poland where the business environment is not as good as in Warsaw. So that's another topic that we're going to take up with the government.
Okay, thank you. Poland has, we've touched on some of the positive things about Poland, and as a final note, Poland is one of only 2 countries in the world which has had unbroken growth, GDP growth, for the last 27 years, since 1992. The other one being Australia, according to the OECD. Is that something you can see continuing into the future?
Well, as an economist, we were trained to think of cycles, right? That at one point in time, it just cannot be growth, continuous growth. I think what I like about the Polish position is, again, what I was mentioning at the beginning, that they are ready, they are prepared, and they have the tools, because that's the other problem, that many countries in this world don't have the tools to face a crisis right now, even rather large countries. They don't have the policy instruments to deal with the problems that may come their way. Poland does, and it has a vision of what they want to do with this country. So I think some of the things sound, sloganish, but it is it is what allowed them to come out of the 2008 essentially unscathed. But as I said, many other countries don't. Now the question, of course, are we, with what's happening in China, with the trade wars, is this going to be such a massive event that even if you have policy tools, that you cannot escape it? That might be the case, right? Because if Germany is affected, heavily affected, all the value chains in the world, there is no way you can escape it. All of these countries are linked somehow or another.
Okay, well, thank you. So I think a message to Poland is to get the great news of the economy and the continued economic growth out. And thank you very much for taking some time to spend with us.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.